I just wanted to first acknowledge that we're on the land of the Ngunnawal and the Ngambri people, and that across Australia there was no agreement for the people that were here first to give up that land. And I just want people to think about the ongoing effects that might have on the people that were here before European arrival. So I'll be talking about pollinator activities that I've been making throughout this semester. How did I come up with the idea? The pollinator trinity, which is the idea that I came to. Iteration, the ordeal, and at the end there will be time for questions and answers. I was asked by Helen to make something that involves pollinators, which are under threat at the moment. Without them, there's evidence that the market would be willing to pay over $100 billion to replace pollinators. So they are worth a lot of money and they're under threat. So this is an important thing for ecosystems, food systems, and medicine as well. Lots of plants from which medicine comes is pollinated by pollinators. And this project had to involve science communication because I'm a science communicator. So at the time, at the beginning of the semester, I was thinking about, insects, they're really smart. They're so smart, they have really specific behavior, like they do dances, like mating dances, just tiny flies. And they're so smart that psychiatrists use them to test drugs because their brains are so similar to ours, like they give drugs to the little flies. And there's this person who has this idea, Kieran Harris, that we don't care about small things. This is just a hypothesis, there's not like a proven thing, but maybe we don't care about things just because they're small. So I thought, all right, well, why don't we just make a big bee? So there's the bee. But then I thought, actually, making a huge bee is going to be really hard, so let's scrap that. And I did some research. What is threatening pollinators anyway? So these two basically say it's land use change, intensive agriculture, pesticides, environmental pollution, invasive species, which compete for limited resources, pathogens which come from overseas bees and then can cross over different species and affect native bees, and climate change. So bees all pollinators have to move to locations where maybe they're not the best fit because of climate change. So usually things move south where it gets cooler and it might not be the best fit for them. And then this third paper says, well, conserving and restoring a natural habitat will help mitigate pollinator decline. So I was like, all right, done. My idea is to explain how farming is terrible and it's taking up all the land for bees. And this was not actually in the Botanic Gardens remit because I'm talking about farms. I mean, the Botanic Gardens did used to be a farm, so there is a link, but now we're more focused on Australian bees and Australian fauna. And I thought, well, in that case, I'm not doing it. There's no way. You don't want my agriculture idea, you can take your pollinators. And then I met Laura, who was my guide and my guru to lead me through a strange land called the public service. It's very weird here. They have committees, and I used to think that public servants didn't look outside in the morning, so that they had something to do in the afternoon. But I couldn't have been more wrong, because public servants do look outside in the morning, because sometimes there's a bird out there that's really interesting. And everyone works really hard, actually, and help me out a lot. So this new program is going to be for children, because we already have some educational activities going on here, but they're for students in year 6, so like 12 and under. So I had to first look at the curriculum and figure out what we could do for older students. And the idea that I came to was the pollination trinity, which involves the Pause for Pollinators book, a dichotomous key, and activities for students to model an ecosystem. This is based on the curricular links, which are creating a dichotomous key and considering what would happen if people or the environment changed to affect a modeled ecosystem. And for students, young people and adults, play is really important. It's a really good way of learning. So I was thinking about what can I do for this pollination simulator, and I heard of this type of bee called masked bees, and I thought, oh, masked bees, fantastic. I'll just give the kids a mask. That'll be so cool. They're gonna love it. And this is a cloaked bee. It kind of looks like a mask, so it's really cool. And from there, I'll kind of run through it now. From there, I introduced sugar bag bees as well. Oh, so can I just ask everyone, which color flower do we think that bees go to? Anyone want to have a guess? Like predominantly. Sure.
Yellow.
Yeah?
Purple.
Purple too, very good. Bees go to lots of different color flowers, sometimes white. Not usually red though. But the cloaked bee, they go to red flowers exclusively. And I thought, well, what happens if something happens to the other bees? And then they can't get pollinated. Maybe there's some room in here for a good learning outcome. So in round one, the bees are quite close to the flowers. Then we introduce deforestation. There's a time limit. The bees have to run further in the same amount of time. This is going to impact how they can get resources. Then in the second round, not to spoil it, but the sugar bag bees get insecticide poisoning and they get wiped out. So students are asked to think, oh, what's going to happen to these bottle brushes without any more pollinator for them? And then because it couldn't just be all negative, you have to give students like an upbeat, kind of uplifting ending. So the students are encouraged to think of solutions, and it's a happy ending. Then the dichotomous key is probably easiest to explain with a little demonstration. Can someone name a plant?
Banksia, right outside.
Banksia, okay, and another plant? Just 2 plants I need. Grevillea. So what's a key feature of a grevillea or a banksia?
That's a bit broad.
Any key feature?
They have in common?
No, they don't have in common.
Like the serrated leaves and the banksia?
Okay, serrated leaves. So the way it works is you have, to tell the difference between grevilleas and banksias, you go, has serrated leaves? Yes. Is a banksia? No. Is a grevillea? So that's the kind of idea students can do for more plants. And then the Pause for Pollinators walk, it's for Australian Pollinator Week, which is this week. You can go and see a bunch of pollinators just out there, like not very far, near the cafe. There's thousands of butterflies and flies and
The beetles have gone crazy.
beetles. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. There's some beetles in one of these background pictures. So I was really surprised. The first time I came up with these ideas, they weren't perfect, so I had to iterate on them and improve them. So I gave students more room to fill out the traits for their organisms. And the logo for the Pause for Pollinated walk, like this bee doesn't have 2 antennae, and usually Australian native bees don't have a stinger, so this is a bit of a problem. I'm happy to say after 5 months, the bee does have 2 antennae now, so things were looking up until the ordeal. So I had to compete with the king. I, as an intern here, was competing for everyone's time while everyone was trying to get their gardens ready for the king to have a look at the place. So eventually, I vanquished the king because he was only here for 1 day and he just left. And I was a winner. And I've been told I look like Charles Leclerc, so this one is Charles Leclerc, and that's me winning. And I was finally able to get the materials tested. And from that feedback, that was with Gregor and Sally and Lara and Morgan, who was very helpful as well. The feedback was, we got to spell out that sugar bag bees don't go to both plants. This, Morgan was very good at reading the instructions, but it took him maybe 15 minutes. So this is something that would need to be given to teachers beforehand, and the pages need page numbers so that the students can find out on what page the activities are on nice and easily. But the activity actually ran very well. It ran the way I planned, and it was a success. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but I think we had fun.
It was a success.
Yeah, and we did learn something. So now I'll tell you, and we can actually afterwards you can have a look at sort of a little bit of what I created. I'll save that so I don't want to distract you, but it is there for afterward. So the reason that it works, these programs, right, it has the scientific backing to it. It builds on students' prior knowledge, so it links in with the curriculum. You don't want to pitch it too low, you don't want to pitch it too high, otherwise kids will either be disengaged or they're not going to get it. So it's related to what they're up to. The images there's no superfluous like decorative images, it's just what you need. It includes cues from the main text, so the text says, oh, look at the image if you don't quite get it. Now we do need to, in the future, actually test this with Year 7 students. But it does have high contrast colors. Red and green is a problem for people that have red-green color blindness, but the main thing is that red and white are very different, and that's the whole basis of the color changing. So any student will be able to tell the difference between white and red. And the image changes for each step. So when there's a cow that's coming in the middle, there's a new image, and then when there's the insecticide, there's insecticide in the image. So it's step by step. And there's no rewards for the students. Now this is very interesting. Students are intrinsically motivated. They just want to know, they just want to learn things. But if you start rewarding them for learning, then you lose the intrinsic motivation, and then they only want to learn for a reward. So there's no rewards. Now in the future, this can be tried with more materials. We got to try it with some masks. My precious masks went not with all of the materials, so we can do that, and also try it with the target audience. We can potentially integrate this with the Botanic Gardens app. We've been thinking of doing that. Putting the walk on the app, that would be nice, and maybe even including information on pollinators, because playing on apps can help students learn. And so this is for Year 7 students, but it can be adapted with this other paper by Weber and colleagues to be perfect for older students as well, to learn about evolution and more advanced topics. So I just want to thank everyone for helping me out, because you all really helped me out. And look, you don't need to thank me, you just have to give me a recommendation on LinkedIn, that'd be really great. So yeah, that's the end of it, and I'll open up the floor for questions.
Did you think it was going to be so complex when you first started it compared to when you finished? Like the whole process, coming up with ideas?
I was not prepared for it to be so complicated. I feel like, it's going to be breezy. But
Yeah, and I have to say, James, well done to you to keep rethinking your ideas, because it is quite frustrating coming up with a plan, because it sounds really simple to start with, but when you start looking at it deeply and testing it and talking to other people, suddenly your ideas are not quite as strong, and then you have to kind of go, where do I go with this? So well done for keeping at it. Good job, it's nasty.
Good question.
I appreciated seeing that journey. I think of, working through your ideas and making sure, testing them against the aims, the gardens, and the messages we're trying to sell, and then rethinking about how to put that forward. So, you worked really hard on it, and I love seeing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I did. this whole, like, one of the concepts of science communication is to tell a story, and so obviously I've integrated that into this as well.
And it sounds easy to tell a story, but it's not.
It's not.
So, yeah.
And particularly not a scientific story, because you know there's so many details that need to be correct.
Yeah, that's
And that, how did you find that sort of process of, because effectively when you did your work and your ideas, you then ran it past a subject matter expert group, which were like our educators, our science communicator, sometimes other scientists. How did you find that process of working through that sort of content assessment process with subject matter experts?
well, I was kind of shy to ask.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, these are experts, they're very busy, but they're actually very helpful, so
Yeah.
that was nice. Everyone was really friendly and was just wanted to see me succeed, so that was nice. And having that resource is like, you know, and I was very lucky to have those people I could just call on and be like, oh, is this a pollinator? What is this bug? Like, yeah.
And
So I found it very nice, very
excellent.
privileged to have that experience.
And I've got another question. What was your favourite experience or activity over the internship?
Well, there's so many. I really liked working with the volunteers and like during the training of the volunteers, going through all that science communication stuff with them. Because what I was learning about, you know, they were good, like the resources that those volunteers got here were really good. And so that was interesting.
Yeah.
But I will say, definitely my favorite thing is actually making content. So I did like just being on the camera and saying, oh, look at these bees, these are cool. But yeah, no, that's all good though.
So it wasn't the King's visit.
Well, no! That was fun too.
I've got a question about you mentioned in your presentation about adapting to different age groups. I was just wondering if you can unpack that a bit, like how you might see these ideas, you know, I guess maybe adapt for early learners, which may be a bit too low, or, you know, going into, you know, high school and college, like how would you tweak it in different directions?
So for the early learners, I hadn't thought of, because those materials already exist in the gardens. But for older learners, what you can do, because the game's a little bit complicated, it's like 2D, 2 flowers. What you can do is you can start to introduce the concept of the flowers evolving to the needs of their pollinator, and the pollinator evolving to the needs of its flower, and then you get specialization. And then, so potentially the sugar bag bees can only go to instead of being able to go to both, perhaps the flower involves some opening to the nectar that is just not compatible with the other pollinator. So then you introduce that concept of specialization. And then, yeah, because there are pollinators in real life that are only for one flower, like this moth, and it's only got one flower. And without that relationship, both would die. So the pollinator needs the flower, and the flower needs the pollinator. So integrating that idea for older students would be possible.
Any other questions or comments for James?
Could you see maths being integrated at all?
Oh yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy Hicks.
So the game involves like running, right? But in terms of accessibility, there's another role, the observation station role, for any student that like can't run, so their role would be to count the amount of times each flower was visited, and then come up with by each type of pollinator, and then come up with a graph of like how, think about like why the red flowers are being pollinated more, and like hypothesize about that, because the red flowers have two pollinators when the border brushes only have one. So, and then like do a basic statistical analysis to be like, oh, they have double the amount of, or whatever it is, like 10% more. and then think about why that might be.
That would be really good. I think you being able to use the data in that way, collection of data, and then actually applying. Teachers would really like. Often they struggle to make the maths interesting. This would make the maths interesting.
Yeah, because they would be taking up that role
You
for
could do all
scientists.
sorts of things.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
It's it'd be pretty easy to get a bunch of subjects covered with most of the stuff we do. So kind of like homeschool experience, homeschool parents are pretty good at like doing something and like matching it to a bunch of different curriculum points and areas. So stuff we do here at the garden, especially like this, is good for that.
Yeah, there were multiple routes I could have taken. There was geography. The link wasn't that good with the curriculum, so I didn't include it. But there was a geography one, like something about map, like reading maps, which you could integrate as well.
Yeah, or you can use it to create maps for all your years as well.
Yeah,
Create a map of an area and like use the frequency data of bees and like where they're located in a certain area and stuff.
Protection connecting to citizen science work, because there's a lot of citizen science
Yeah.
work on pollinators particularly, which, and in Canberra as well. So,
yeah. Well, yeah. The only bit about citizen science is in
But also pollinators.
yeah, it just mentions that you can go to iNaturalist. Yeah, of
so
course.
this is the first.
Oh yeah, if anyone wants to have a look at one, like these are like well, this is an early iteration, but this one's a bit better.
Yeah, I'd like that one.
So I suppose I have one more question too. Do you see, is there an obvious space where you see that there's more to develop in this direction, like around the theme of pollinators with a different audience?
Do you mean so not students?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the walk is for everyone.
Yeah.
And those activities potentially, if they go online on the like early learning centre or the learning centre,
Yeah.
then they can just be used for any
Yes.
year level or anyone that like thinks that that's a good learning outcome. Even though it might not slot into the curriculum.
Yeah.
They could make their own connections because I don't know the curriculum off by heart, but there's potentially other curriculum
Yes.
things that would slot into as
The
well.
thing is, sustainability is a cross-curriculum perspective for all subject areas. So often in different subject areas, they're looking for something like I'm thinking of the maths.
Yeah.
Something where they can tick the box. They've done something relating to sustainability and bees, and that certainly related to sustainability and pollinators.
And then training biodiversity and understanding how ecosystems
Yeah.
work and what happens when you remove a key player in the ecosystem. So that's all very much on sustainability. So, right.
Yeah, so can tick lots of boxes for different, like geography, but a lot of different subject areas are often looking for something that can be cross curriculum perspective for their area, whereas, I can see a lot of different links to different things.
Not only for students, but I also thought the dichotomous key could be used by anyone as well. Potentially that could just be in that because the animals in the dichotomous key are the ones that we see from here, like the hoverfly. But people don't know what that is, and blue-banded bee, and like the reed bee. So it'd be nice just to get anyone to be able to use that because if there's a picture of it, at least they'll be able to identify it. Really.
James, bye, sorry I can catch up with you. It looks all really good what you're doing. I just got to go now, okay?
That's okay. Thanks for calling. That's it for questions.
Is it for questions?
I think so. I think you've given a reasonable reason. I think